The astronauts stared out the viewports of their spaceship, their eyes fixed on the planet before them. It was an unfamiliar world, a barren and desolate place, far from Earth. Yet something about it seemed to call to them, as though there was a secret waiting to be uncovered. Captain Sarah Harris and her crew had been exploring deep space for months, and they had seen many strange and wonderful things. But this was different. They had just discovered an ancient relic buried deep within the surface of the planet, and something about it felt wrong. The relic was unlike anything they had ever seen before. It was a massive, stone-like object, covered in strange symbols that glowed faintly in the darkness. They had initially thought it was just another piece of alien technology, a forgotten artifact from some long-lost civilization. But as they began to study it, they realized that it was much more than that. The relic was broadcasting a message that had been buried in the planet's core for thousands of years. Sarah had always been a skeptic. She believed in the science, in the cold, hard facts that governed the universe. But as the crew deciphered the message, she couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The message was clear, and it was terrifying. Earth is a threat. The message repeated over and over again. Earth is a threat to the galaxy. It must be stopped. At first, Sarah thought it was some kind of mistake. Maybe the message had been corrupted over time, or maybe it was simply a warning from a species long dead. But the more they examined it, the more they realized it was real. The message had been recorded by a species older than any they had encountered before, a species that had seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations across the galaxy. And now, they were warning them about Earth. The crew members were silent, their eyes wide with shock. They had all heard the rumors, the stories told by old explorers about Earth's potential. It was said that Earth was a young, primitive world, teeming with life and full of untapped potential. But none of them had ever considered the possibility that Earth could be a threat to the galaxy. "Are we sure this is real?" asked Lieutenant Mark Williams, the ship's communications officer. "I mean, this could just be some ancient warning, left behind by a civilization that is long gone." Sarah shook her head, her mind racing. "No, it's real," she said, her voice tight. "The message is coming from the core of this planet, and it's been there for thousands of years. Whoever left it behind knew what they were talking about." The crew continued to study the relic, searching for any more clues about the warning. But the more they dug, the more questions they had. Who had sent this message, and why? What was it about Earth that made it such a threat? And why had they hidden this warning so far away from the homeworlds of the galaxy? As the crew worked tirelessly to unlock the secrets of the relic, something strange began to happen. The planet, which had been completely still and silent just hours before, started to rumble. It was a low, deep vibration that seemed to come from the very core of the planet. Sarah and her crew looked at each other, their faces filled with confusion and fear. "What the hell is going on?" Mark asked, his voice shaky. "I don't know," Sarah replied, her heart pounding in her chest. "But I don't like it." The rumbling grew louder, and the ship's sensors began to flicker. Something was happening, something they couldn't explain. The crew scrambled to check the systems, trying to make sense of the strange readings. But before they could figure it out, the ship was rocked by a violent shockwave, throwing everyone off their feet. The lights flickered and went out, leaving the crew in darkness. Sarah scrambled to regain control, her hands shaking as she tried to get the ship back on course. The rumbling continued, growing more intense with each passing second. It was as if the entire planet was coming to life, awakening from a long slumber. "Captain," Mark's voice crackled over the comms. "We've got company." Sarah's heart skipped a beat as she turned to him. "What do you mean, company?" Before Mark could answer, the ship's sensors flashed with an incoming threat. A fleet of ships, massive and alien, appeared on the radar. They were moving fast, and they were heading straight for them. "They're not human," Mark said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I've never seen ships like these before." Sarah's mind raced. Who were they? Why were they here? And why had they come for them now, just after they had uncovered the relic's message? The rumbling from the planet grew louder, and the crew could feel the tension building. Whatever was happening, it was no coincidence. The message, the warning, the sudden appearance of the alien ships, it was all connected. As the alien ships approached, Sarah made a decision. "Get us out of here," she ordered. "Now." But before they could make the jump to faster-than-light travel, the alien ships launched a barrage of weapons at them, causing the ship to shake violently. The crew members screamed as the hull buckled under the pressure. The ship was being torn apart. "Captain, we're losing control," Mark shouted. Sarah gritted her teeth, trying to keep the ship steady. But it was no use. The alien ships were too powerful, and they were closing in fast. The crew had no choice but to brace for impact. As the ship's systems failed one by one, Sarah's mind raced. Who were these aliens? And why did they fear Earth so much? The relic's message had been clear. Earth was a threat. But what kind of threat could a young, untested planet pose to a galaxy full of advanced civilizations? In that moment, as the ship plunged toward the planet's surface, Sarah realized the truth. Earth wasn't just any planet. It was the key to something far greater, something the galaxy's oldest beings had feared for eons. And now, Earth's awakening had begun. The crash landing was violent, but somehow, against all odds, the ship survived. The impact threw the crew members around like rag dolls, and everything went dark. When Sarah Harris regained consciousness, the first thing she noticed was the smell of burning metal and the crackling of fires. Her body ached, but she managed to pull herself up, pushing past the pain. She looked around the wreckage of their ship. The crew had been scattered, but they were alive. "Captain," Mark's voice was hoarse, calling out from somewhere near the cockpit. "Captain, are you all right?" Sarah pushed herself up, her vision still blurry as she stumbled over to where Mark was. He was pinned under some debris, but he was breathing, alive. With all her strength, she moved the wreckage off him, and he groaned as he sat up. "I'm okay," Mark said, wiping the dust from his face. "But the rest of the crew?" "I know," Sarah interrupted, looking around. "We need to check on everyone. But we need to be careful. We don't know if those ships are still out there." The crew slowly gathered together. Miraculously, most of them had survived the crash, though several were injured. But as Sarah looked around at their battered ship and the burning wreckage, the gravity of their situation started to sink in. They had just been attacked by an unknown alien force, and they were stranded on a hostile world. "Status report," Sarah ordered. Lieutenant Claire Thompson, the ship's science officer, limped over to Sarah. Her face was pale, but she was holding up well considering the circumstances. "The main systems are down. Communications are offline, and the engines are fried. We can't contact Earth or anyone else. We're on our own out here." "Great," Sarah muttered under her breath. "What about the relic? Was it damaged in the crash?" Claire hesitated before answering. "It doesn't look like it. It's still intact, but I can't be sure it's working properly. The vibrations from the crash might have affected it." Sarah frowned. The relic had been their only lead, the only clue to understanding why Earth was such a threat to the galaxy. They needed to find it, and quickly. "Mark, Claire, help me retrieve the relic," Sarah said, her voice firm. "The rest of you, secure the perimeter. We don't know what kind of threats we're facing here." The crew spread out, setting up defensive positions around the wreckage. Sarah, Mark, and Claire made their way to the cargo hold, where the relic had been stored. It wasn't far, but the journey felt longer than it should. The air around them felt thick, heavy, as though the planet itself was alive, watching them. When they reached the hold, Sarah's heart sank. The relic was still there, but something was wrong. It was glowing brighter than before, pulsing with an eerie energy that made the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. It was almost as if it was reacting to something they couldn't see. Why is it glowing like that? Claire whispered, her voice tight with fear. I don't know, Sarah replied. But I think we've just scratched the surface. This isn't just a relic. It's a message. And I don't think we're meant to understand it yet. Suddenly, the ground beneath them shook again, more violently than before. The rumbling was louder, like the planet itself was waking up from a long slumber. The ship groaned, and the relic's glow intensified. Captain, Mark shouted, we need to get out of here. Before Sarah could respond, the ship's hull creaked, and the walls seemed to move. The rumbling grew deafening, and then, with a thunderous crack, a section of the ship's wall burst open. The crew stumbled backward, their eyes wide in shock. Through the breach, Sarah could see what had caused the disturbance. A massive shadow was moving toward them, stretching across the wreckage. It was an alien, tall, dark, and imposing, with a presence that radiated power. But this was no ordinary alien. Its features were obscured by the shadows, but Sarah could feel its gaze on her, cold and calculating. Without warning, the alien raised its hand, and the ground beneath them shifted. The crew gasped as the earth seemed to bend and twist, responding to the alien's power. They were being trapped, but they didn't understand why. Get ready, Sarah shouted. Everyone, to the wreckage. We need cover. But the alien didn't attack. Instead, it stepped forward slowly, as if studying them. It seemed to be waiting for something, and its presence alone was enough to paralyze the crew with fear. Sarah had to act quickly. She knew that if they didn't escape soon, they would be captured or worse. Move, now, she ordered. As they ran toward the wreckage, the alien spoke, its voice deep and resonant. You do not understand the gravity of your actions. The words froze them in place. The alien's tone wasn't one of anger, but of cold inevitability. It was as though it had known this moment would come, and it had waited for it. You have awoken something that should have remained buried. The alien continued. The relic is not a gift. It is a warning. Earth is a threat. A danger to the very fabric of the galaxy. Sarah stood frozen, trying to make sense of what the alien was saying. What do you mean? Why is Earth such a threat? The alien took another step forward, its presence overwhelming. Because Earth is not as it seems. The power you possess, the power you do not yet understand, could destroy everything. You are the new guardians of a power that even we, ancient beings, fear. The alien raised its hand again, and the ground trembled once more. You have awoken a force that will change the galaxy forever, and you will not be able to stop it. The air around them thickened, and the alien's shadow grew larger, as if consuming the very space around them. Sarah's heart raced. This wasn't just an alien encounter. It was the beginning of something much bigger. Get to the relic, Sarah shouted. But before they could make it, the ground shifted violently again, and a second alien appeared from the shadows, its figure just as menacing as the first. The crew was trapped, surrounded by forces far beyond their understanding. The relic's glow pulsed wildly, as though reacting to the presence of the ancient beings. Whatever secret it held was about to be revealed, but whether that revelation would save them or doom them remained to be seen. The two alien beings loomed over the wreckage, their towering figures casting long shadows across the battlefield of twisted metal and scattered equipment. Sarah could feel the weight of their gaze, and it chilled her to the core. These were not ordinary aliens. They were ancient, powerful, and they radiated an energy that seemed to bend the very air around them. They spoke in a language that Sarah couldn't understand, their voices a deep, resonating hum that reverberated through her chest. But the message was clear. They were not here to negotiate. They were here because of Earth. Sarah's mind raced, trying to make sense of what had just happened. These beings, these creatures, were clearly not of this world, and the fact that they had come all the way here to this forsaken planet meant one thing. Earth was in grave danger. The relic, the strange object they had found buried deep in the planet's core, was the key. It wasn't just a relic of some forgotten civilization. It was a warning and a weapon. And now, it seemed, the universe's oldest beings were terrified that humanity would unlock its secrets. "Why are you here?" Sarah demanded, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and defiance. "What do you want from us?" The first alien being, the one with eyes like black voids that seemed to absorb all light, stepped forward. Its body rippled with strange energy, and its skin shimmered with a translucent sheen. It spoke again, but this time Sarah could feel the words inside her mind, as if the creature was communicating directly with her thoughts. "You have disturbed forces you do not understand, human." The alien's voice boomed inside her head. "The power you possess on Earth is ancient. It is dangerous. It was sealed away for a reason." Sarah's heart hammered in her chest. She couldn't begin to grasp the magnitude of what she was hearing. "What power?" she asked, almost in disbelief. "We're just a young species. What could we possibly have that could threaten you?" The second alien, equally imposing and just as silent, stepped closer. The ground trembled beneath them, and Sarah felt a chill run through her veins. This was no longer just an alien encounter. It was a clash between forces much greater than she had ever imagined. And Earth, her home, was at the center of it all. "You do not understand," the first alien said, its voice growing colder, more distant. "Earth was once the seat of a civilization that wielded powers beyond even our comprehension. They were your ancestors, but they were wiped out by their own creations. The forces you now seek to control were once the weapons that destroy them. But that was thousands of years ago," Sarah responded, struggling to make sense of it all. "We don't even know what these relics mean. We didn't ask for this. None of us did." The alien's gaze hardened. "It does not matter what you ask for. The power you now awaken will shake the future of your species. The galaxy has already felt the ripple of your actions. Earth's potential is no longer a secret, but your species is not ready for what it can unleash." Sarah's head spun. This was too much to absorb all at once. The galaxy, the ancient civilization, the power beneath Earth's surface, it was all tied together in a way that made her question everything she thought she knew about humanity's place in the universe. But one thing was certain now: they had uncovered something that shouldn't have been found. And now, those who had hidden it were coming for them. "What happens now?" Sarah asked, her voice barely a whisper. The first alien's form seemed to shimmer with energy. "What happens now, human, is up to you. The choice is yours. You can continue to pursue this power and risk your own extinction, or you can destroy it and ensure the safety of your people." The words hung in the air like a heavy weight. Sarah felt a chill creep up her spine as she processed the alien's words. Extinction. That was the threat. Earth, a young, untested species, was now being faced with a choice that could determine not just their future, but the fate of the entire galaxy. As if on cue, the ground trembled again, more violently this time, sending shockwaves through the wreckage. The air grew thick, charged with energy, and Sarah could feel the temperature rising. Something was happening, something that neither she nor her crew could control. "Get to the relic," Sarah ordered, her voice rising in urgency. "We need to shut it down before it's too late." But the alien beings did not move. Instead, they stood still, their dark eyes watching Sarah, their expressions unreadable. The second alien raised its hand, and the very ground beneath them began to shift, as if responding to its will. The air crackled with electricity, and Sarah could feel the hair on her arms stand on end. "They are coming," the first alien said, its voice low and full of warning. "The ones who were sealed away. They are not the ones you should fear the most, but they will not be kind. If you wish to survive, you must act quickly." Before Sarah could react, a distant rumble echoed across the planet's surface. It was a low, thunderous sound, and it came from far below them. The relic, she realized, was still glowing. Its pulse was growing stronger, more erratic, And as she glanced back at the alien beings, she saw something that made her blood run cold. Their fear. They were afraid of what was coming. "Who are they?" Sarah demanded, her voice desperate. "What do you mean?" "The ones who were sealed away." The alien hesitated before answering, its eyes narrowing. "The ones who were sealed away are older than even us. They are the ones who made the relic, who created the power that destroyed their own kind. They are the true threat to the galaxy. They are coming." Before Sarah could speak again, the ground began to crack open, the earth splitting apart as something massive and ancient began to rise from below. It was like a waking giant, its form emerging slowly from the depths of the planet. And as it rose, the relic's glow grew brighter, almost blinding, as if responding to the ancient power that had been buried for so long. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she watched the creature emerge from the depths, its massive form stretching up into the sky. It was more than she could comprehend. An ancient being, a remnant of a civilization long gone. And it was rising to reclaim what had been lost. "We have no time," the alien mourned. "Destroy the relic now, or you will not survive." But Sarah couldn't move. She was frozen in place, watching as the ancient creature finally stepped into the light, its eyes glowing with a deep, malevolent energy. The universe's oldest beings had feared this moment, and now it was here. Earth's awakening had begun. The ground trembled again, but this time, it was not just the rumbling of the planet. It was a sound that came from deep within the earth, something old, something powerful. The crew stood frozen in place as the ancient creature's massive form emerged from the depths of the planet. Its body was unlike anything they had ever seen before. The skin was a dark, almost metallic substance, with glowing veins running through it, pulsing in time with the rhythmic beat of the relic. The air around it crackled with energy, and the very ground beneath their feet seemed to bow under its presence. Sarah's heart raced as she watched the creature rise. It stood towering over them, its eyes glowing with an eerie, otherworldly light. There was no way to describe it other than ancient, and the fear it radiated was palpable. The alien beings that had warned them earlier now stood motionless, their forms still and watching, their expressions unreadable. For a moment, Sarah could hear nothing but the pounding of her own pulse in her ears. The other members of the crew were too stunned to speak, their eyes wide with terror as they looked up at the creature. It was like nothing they had ever encountered, and the sheer size and power of it made their situation seem even more hopeless. "We need to destroy the relic," Sarah whispered, her voice tight with urgency. "Now, before it's too late." But even as the words left her mouth, she knew that it might already be too late. The relic's pulse was growing stronger, and with each beat, the creature's form seemed to grow more defined, more powerful. It was responding to the energy of the relic, awakening from its long slumber. The crew had unknowingly triggered something far greater than they could have ever imagined. The first alien being, the one who had spoken to Sarah before, stepped forward, its voice deep and resonant. "It is already too late. The relic cannot be destroyed, not now. It has already called to the Ancient Ones. It is their time to return." Sarah's mind raced. "Who are these Ancient Ones? What do you mean?" The alien hesitated, its eyes narrowing, as if it was making a decision. "The Ancient Ones are the creators of the relic, the ones who sealed away their own power. They are the ones who brought about the fall of their civilization. They are the ones who now seek to reclaim what they lost. They have been dormant for eons, waiting for the day when their power could be restored. But why did they leave it behind? Why put the relic on Earth?" Sarah asked, her voice shaking with confusion. The alien paused, as if searching for the right words. The relic was hidden here because Earth was considered insignificant. A young, untapped world. A world where no one would think to look, but Earth holds the key. It was always meant to be the final battleground, the place where the relic's power would be unleashed again. Earth was meant to either be destroyed or reborn, depending on who controlled the relic. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. So if we let it awaken, the galaxy could be at risk. The alien nodded gravely. Yes, the Ancient Ones seek to control the relic's power to restore their empire, to reassert dominance over the galaxy. If they succeed, nothing will be able to stop them. They will consume everything. Sarah felt the weight of the decision pressing down on her. There was no time left. The creature now stood fully upright, towering over the wreckage of their ship and the scattered remnants of their crew. Its presence alone was enough to make the earth tremble beneath them. The ancient being opened its mouth, and from within, a deep guttural roar echoed out, a sound that seemed to shake the very atmosphere. "They are awakening," the alien whispered, its voice full of fear, "and there is nothing you can do to stop them now." The air grew heavier, thick with tension. The ground beneath them seemed to come alive, shifting and cracking as if it were responding to the ancient creature's commands. The sky above darkened, swirling with ominous clouds. The planet itself felt as though it were being pulled into a vortex, its very existence on the brink of collapse. "Get to the relic," Sarah shouted, her voice filled with desperation. She knew now that they had no choice. The alien beings, despite their power, could not stop the ancient creature from awakening. The only chance they had to survive, and to protect Earth, was to try and shut the relic down. But Sarah wasn't even sure it was possible. The relic's pulse was so strong now, it was as if it was a living thing, growing more powerful with each passing second. The crew scrambled to follow her orders, moving toward the wreckage where the relic was still glowing, its pulse now erratic and uncontrollable. Sarah's mind raced as she tried to think of a plan. The creature was now fully awake, its massive form looming over them, its eyes glowing like twin suns. It would only be a matter of time before it unleashed its full power. But as Sarah neared the relic, something changed. The ground shook more violently, and the air seemed to crackle with energy. The relic's glow intensified, blindingly bright. And then, as if responding to the creature's awakening, the earth split open in front of them. A massive portal, swirling with dark energy, began to open in the ground, right in front of the relic. From within the portal, a figure emerged. This new being was even more imposing than the first, its presence radiating an immense, almost godlike power. It was clear now that this was not just an alien. It was something far more ancient, something that had been waiting for this moment for eons. The creature stepped forward, its eyes locking onto Sarah. "You have awakened the power of the old ones. Now you must face the consequences." The air around Sarah grew thick with dread. This was it, the moment they had feared. The Ancient Ones were not just legends. They were real, and they had come to reclaim what they had lost. "No," Sarah whispered, her mind racing for a solution. "We didn't mean to." But the creature silenced her with a single powerful gesture. A wave of energy crashed over them, and Sarah's vision blurred. The world around her seemed to fold in on itself as the relic's pulse grew louder, stronger. "Earth will either be destroyed," the creature's voice echoed, "or it will become a new beginning. But you, human, are the ones who will decide." The ground beneath their feet gave way as the energy from the portal intensified, and Sarah was thrown to the ground. She felt herself slipping into unconsciousness, but through the darkness, she heard the words that would haunt her for the rest of her life. "Your choice has been made." Sarah's world spun as she struggled to regain her bearings. The force of the energy that had crashed over them left her dizzy, her body trembling with the aftereffects. She tried to push herself up, but the ground was unsteady, shifting beneath her as the dark energy from the portal swirled around them. The alien beings, the ones who had been warning them, were now nowhere to be seen. Only the massive figure of the ancient creature remained, towering over her like an unstoppable force. Its eyes burned with a cold, unyielding fire, and its presence felt like a heavy weight pressing down on Sarah's chest. "What have we done?" she whispered, struggling to breathe as she looked around. The crew had scattered in fear, some of them pinned under debris from the wreckage, others stumbling and disoriented by the overwhelming power of the portal. They were all in the grip of something much larger than they could comprehend. The creature that had emerged from the portal seemed to take pleasure in their fear, its eyes narrowing as it studied them. "You have awoken the old powers," it said, its voice resonating with deep authority. "You are not the first to do so. You are simply the next in line to face the consequences." The air around them grew colder as the sky above darkened even further, as if the very atmosphere was being torn apart. Sarah's heart raced. She could feel the pull of the portal, the ancient energy that was slowly beginning to consume the world around them. Whatever this power was, it was not something they were meant to control. And now that it had been awakened, it was far too late to stop it. "Sarah." Mark's voice snapped her out of her panic. She turned to see him struggling to stand, his face pale and bloodied from the crash. "We need to get to the ship. We need tow." "We can't," Sarah interrupted, her voice trembling. "The portal's growing stronger. We're running out of time." Mark's expression hardened. He glanced at the relic, still glowing at the center of the wreckage. "We can't just leave it here. It's the key to everything. If we don't do something now, we'll never get another chance." Sarah's mind raced as she tried to process what Mark was saying. The relic was the key to all of this. The ancient power, the creature, the portal. It was the catalyst for everything that was unfolding. But was there any hope left? Could they even destroy it? Or was the relic too far beyond their understanding? Before she could answer, the ancient creature spoke again, its voice echoing across the battlefield. "You will not stop it. The relic has already chosen. The old ones will reclaim what is theirs, and your world will fall." The creature's words sent a chill through Sarah. It wasn't just threatening them. It was declaring the end of Earth. The very future of humanity was at risk, and it felt as though there was no escape. But there had to be something. They couldn't let the universe's oldest beings succeed in their twisted resurrection. If Earth was truly the final battleground, they couldn't let it be destroyed, no matter the cost. "We have to shut it down," Sarah said, her voice steadying with newfound resolve. "We have to stop the relic from completing its awakening. It's our only chance." Mark nodded, his eyes burning with determination. "Then let's do it." The crew slowly began to regroup, some of them still disoriented by the blast of energy, but most of them knew what needed to be done. Together, they moved toward the relic, their goal clear in their minds. The creature watched them, its gaze cold and unfeeling, as though it knew their efforts would be futile. But Sarah wasn't willing to give up. Not yet. As they approached the relic, Sarah could feel the intensity of its glow. The pulsating energy was almost unbearable, a force that seemed to vibrate with an unnatural power. The relic was more than just an object. It was a conduit, a bridge to the ancient forces that had long been sealed away. And if they didn't act quickly, it would consume them all. "Everyone, stay close," Sarah commanded, her voice sharp with urgency. "We don't know what will happen when we touch it, but we can't just let it keep growing." The crew gathered around, forming a circle around the relic. Sarah took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing thoughts. This was it. There was no turning back. As Sarah reached out to touch the relic, the energy around her flared in response. It was as if the object itself was alive, reacting to her presence. The ground trembled beneath them, and the sky above seemed to darken even further, as though the universe itself was holding its breath. Then the relic pulsed violently, sending a wave of energy out from its center. The force of it knocked Sarah and the crew off their feet, throwing them back into the wreckage. The sound of the energy reverberated in her skull, and for a moment, Sarah thought she might lose consciousness. But when she opened her eyes, she saw something that took her breath away. The portal had started to close. The ancient creature, standing in the center of the field, seemed to flinch as if it was being pushed back by an unseen force. Its glowing eyes flickered for a moment, and then its body rippled with a dark energy that made the air around them crackle. The relic's glow was no longer as bright. It was fading, dimming with each pulse. Impossible, the creature growled, its voice full of fury. You cannot stop this. But Sarah wasn't about to let it win. She pushed herself to her feet, her body aching, her vision blurred, but her resolve was clearer than ever. We can stop it, she said, her voice strong. And we will. With a final surge of energy, the portal began to collapse in on itself, the dark energy being sucked back into the depths of the planet. The ground shook violently, and the creature let out an ear-splitting roar as it struggled to maintain its hold. But it was too late. The relic, now almost completely dimmed, had severed the connection to the ancient powers, preventing the return of the old ones. The creature's form began to flicker, its body dissolving into nothingness as the energy that had sustained it unraveled. It screamed in agony, its final cry echoing across the desolate landscape. And then, with one final pulse, it was gone. The air grew still, the ground stopped shaking, and the relic, now lifeless and dim, lay silent in the midst of the wreckage. Sarah collapsed to her knees, exhaustion washing over her like a tidal wave. The battle had been won, but at what cost? They had stopped the ancient ones from reclaiming their power, but they had only just begun to realize the true extent of what they had awakened. Earth was safe, for now. But the secrets of the relic, the ancient beings, and the power they had unlocked would haunt them for the rest of their lives. They had prevented the destruction of Earth, but what would come next? What consequences would follow? The answers were still out there, waiting to be discovered.